Well, the year just keeps flying by because it's the monthly AMA again, where I answer questions put to me by $5 supporters on Patreon and Subscribestar. If you'd like to ask me anything, just use the links in the description. Let's start on Subscribestar, where Pierre asks, Hey Shane, do you believe the United States is close to defaulting on the national debt and or no longer able to borrow money? What situation would a default put the average U.S. citizen, and what should he or she do to prepare for that situation? I think we saw an example of what might happen a few years ago when S&P lowered the credit rating of the U.S. government and were basically bullied into raising it back to AAA. Politicians in the news media panned it as politicking, John Kerry called it a Tea Party downgrade, and Howard Dean said they were smoking tea instead of drinking it. Obama basically threatened them to raise the rating back up with the rhetoric of, "We've always been and always will be a AAA country," and instigated a $5 billion fraud lawsuit against them. What wasn't as well publicized is that there were several other downgrades over Obama's term, from Egan-Jones, Fitch, and DeGong. In each case, there was retaliation. The SEC immediately launched investigations against all of them, except for DeGong, who still has the USA at BBB+. Basically, what all of this means is that we can't trust credit ratings when it comes to the federal government. They're just putting electrical tape over the check engine light. The more people catch on to it, the worse it'll be. The best way to prepare yourself is to diversify, not only in liquid tangibles, but also in assets not priced in US dollars. In particular, gold is a good hedge here. When confidence in the dollar becomes lacking, banks give up dollars and turn to gold, which is still the second biggest form of money in the world. As they do that, it causes the dollar to inflate a bit, because you have dollars that were in reserve that are now in circulation. If that inflation causes more banks and other investors to exchange dollars for gold, then you can get this feedback loop, and that's where you get hyperinflation. I don't think it's a question of if this will happen, it's a question of when. So really, gold and gold-backed annuities are probably your best bet for protecting against this situation, but keep in mind there are other potential disasters you need to protect yourself from as well. A good diversified portfolio will do that. Over on Patreon, Sean Pierre asks, What are your thoughts on the feasibility of the USA to be split apart into 50 different countries? It is technically unconstitutional, but not impossible. Well, I don't see how it's unconstitutional. There's nothing at all in the Constitution that says that states can't secede. In fact, according to the principles that form the basis of the Constitution, none of it is valid unless participation by the states is voluntary. But I don't see it happening. We've already fought one war over this, and a pretty terrible one at that. Just imagine what the U.S. government would do if other states tried it today. Josh Havens asks, What are your thoughts on intellectual property and copyright? My friend told me we need those because any giant company can swoop in, steal someone's idea, and the original creator won't make any money for his or her creation. Well, it's funny how every time in history that's been possible, the result has been greater creative output, both in quality and quantity. A good example is classical music in Germany, where there was no copyright protection, and you had Beethoven, Mozart, and all of those greats. Now look at how little of that you had from Britain, which did have copyright protection. Shakespeare is another example. He never had copyright protection for his works. Anyone could steal his works, and he could steal theirs. Shakespeare didn't create Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. He just did his own version of them, like Disney did with Cinderella and Snow White. The knowledge that someone like John Fletcher could come along at any time and steal his work, and did, is what kept him doing more. Contrast that with Hollywood today. I mean, really, when was the last time they had an original idea? Even Disney is remaking their own movies. And finally, Thomas Urbanski asks, My guess is that in Ancapistan, founding software development will be almost exclusively done by open source foundations like Blender Foundation or development of Godot engine with exception for custom-built solutions. What is your take on the topic? Do you think that the software business model as we know today could somehow work in Ancapistan, or maybe it would be nothing like we are used to? Well, it's not like you'd have to do open source, but without IP protections, you could only protect it as a trade secret, which means that once it gets out, that's it. But today, even with all these IP protections, even Microsoft has started to recognize the value of open source. So they'd all adapt, as they do now. So that's it for another month. Thanks for watching, and if you really want to support this channel, nothing helps more than sharing this video because YouTube's been unfairly excluding independent creators like myself from their related videos. Of course, there's always donate.bogosity.tv where you can donate with PayPal or crypto, or become a regular supporter at Patreon or Subscribestar, or simply by downloading BitTube's airtime extension using the link and having that extension active when you watch my videos. Or just watch my videos directly at bittubers.com. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.